Recently, a report has come online stating that God of War Ragnarok could be getting a DLC. The leak comes from a Spanish outlet, which I won't pronounce the name of as I will most likely butcher it. It's also worth noting that the people that leaked this game also leaked the Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta before that got announced. Before we carry on, I just want to say please take everything I say with a grain of salt, as once again this is a rumour and we won't know if it's actually true until Sony Santa Monica officially announce it. So we don't actually know too much about this supposed game or DLC. We know that it is supposedly supposed to be announced by the end of the year, and just taking an educated guess, I would say the Game Awards, as that seems the most likely time to announce a new game that is a follow-up to a critically acclaimed game, that being God of War Ragnarok. The leak also goes on to say that it will be a similar size to Spider-Man and Miles Morales, so expect like a 6 to 8 hour experience. So that's all the leak really says, so from this point on I would just be speculating about what this potential game or DLC could be. The only thing I have against this leak is that Sony Santa Monica themselves said that DLC seemed unlikely, so maybe originally this was supposed to be a DLC, but like Uncharted The Lost Legacy, they are transitioning it into a full release. And if that is the case, then we can expect a slightly reduced price tag if the game is actually real. So what could this potential game slash DLC be about? For me, the most likely option would be you will play as Atreus, as at the end of Ragnarok it seemed like they were setting something up, as at the end Atreus left with Angerboda, as she said that there were more giants out there, so potentially this story could be both Atreus and Angerboda going to find them. Obviously more stuff would have to happen in the game, as maybe just going around finding giants would maybe get a bit repetitive and boring. So maybe Atreus would meet up with some of the other characters that he met during his story in God of War Ragnarok, maybe some characters from Asgard, or maybe Thrud for example, as they seem to have a interesting dynamic, I guess. And also maybe this storyline would push a bit more on the Atreus Angerboda relationship side of things, as we know from Norse mythology that Angerboda and Loki do end up getting together and they have a couple of children, one of them being the World Serpent, as during God of War Ragnarok, during Atreus' storyline where he met Angerboda, there was a quite electric dynamic between them, and I would like to see that explored a bit more, as pretty much during their first encounter they were pretty much flirting with each other the entire thing. So I think maybe a full game of that would be quite interesting if it was done well, but maybe if it was done poorly it would end up being a bit annoying. But I just would like to see more of the Atreus and Angerboda relationship, as I thought that was quite cute and it just seemed like a good springboard to jump off of, as we know from Norse mythology that is actually a real thing. Also potentially at the end of this story it could link to the next mainline God of War game, where presumably you will play as Kratos again. As they said during the press, I guess, for Ragnarok, the Ragnarok would be the last game of the Norse saga, so presumably the next game they'll be going to a different one. Most people are saying Egypt, so potentially this game could link to or set up the Egypt game. Maybe it would end with Atreus being teleported to Egypt for example, and maybe Kratos is there, or maybe potentially in the next God of War game Kratos will have to go to Egypt to save him or something like that. But I would like to see maybe some hint or connection to where the game series will go next and what mythology they will tackle next. I'm not even sure whether Kratos would appear in this potential God of War Ragnarok sequel. The only way I could see him being a part of it is maybe, let's say, Atreus and Angerboda set up a camp and they make a campfire, and then around it Angerboda asks Atreus about his past and about Kratos. Maybe there could be like flashbacks to more training Kratos did with Atreus. Maybe that could be a way of getting Kratos into it. But I wouldn't expect Kratos to be like a big person in this game, as obviously the whole series is pretty much about him. So I would say this story would solely focus on Atreus, as I'm kind of hope it does, as I feel like there's a lot more we can get into with Atreus, as I find his character really interesting and I just want to learn a lot more about him. Moving on to the gameplay, it's not like they would even have to make it from the ground up entirely, because they have the Atreus moveset from Ragnarok. They also have the Angerboda kind of AI companionship from Ragnarok that they can just bring over. Also presumably they would be reusing the same map as Ragnarok, as if we look at Mars Morales, they use the same map for that. But also, on the other hand, we have Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, where they made an entirely new map. So it could be either one way or the other. I'll be happy if they did reuse the same map from Ragnarok, but also be happy if they made an entirely new one. The more likely option is just to reuse the map from Ragnarok, as presumably the game hasn't been in development that long. Let's say it started development when Ragnarok released, that was November 2022, so it's been in development for about a year. Who knows when it will release though, maybe end of next year or like summer next year maybe. But yeah, I'd say as the most likely option is for them to just reuse the map from Ragnarok. But that's all I have about this new God of War Ragnarok sequel, DLC, game thing. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your ideas for this game? Who would you like to see in it? As in character wise, and also where do you think the plot would go. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time.